Let's move on to talking about time and quantization. So with timing and quantization, you have two basic things that you need to know. You need to know the tools and the methods that are used to do the quantization corrections, and you also need to understand phonetics. Let's talk a little bit about the tools and the methods first. Now, with the tools and the methods, you have, in Cubase at least, you have a couple of tools to help you change the timing of vocals. And one of them is the slip tool. And this is a method that you can use kind of sparingly because you can only do it when the vocalist is taking a breath. So let's go into into this verse and see if we can find a part where he is breathing.
Free falling deeper down with the lost and found.
Now, in this particular song, a lot of the lines that would normally be a breath are just recorded into its own take. So there's one take per breath. So it'll be kind of hard to demonstrate this.
Then you'll see everything that you wanted to be. How you supposed to live your life when nothing ever.
Plus he also has lungs of steel, so he never takes a breath, which is always good for demonstrating stuff.
You've just been killing time you won't get back.
Well, the cut and slip technique is basically going to work in one way. You're going to go into a vocal part, and whenever there's a breath, you'll make a cut in front. And then instead of slipping the audio within that event, you'll actually just move the entire event. And then if there's another section where a breath is being taken, you can go like this and just move the entire piece of audio around. That's the most basic way of changing the timing of a vocal, but it's very limited. There's only a certain amount of editing that you can do with that. The next method of doing it would be warping it, and the tool for warping is called free warp, at least in Cubase. So let's go into this sample editor. And then when we click on audio warp, we're now given a tool called warp. And when I click on something and move it around, it doesn't look like it's doing much. But as soon as I do another edit point, now it starts to warp to make whatever edit I want to do possible. So it'll stretch the audio as little or as much as I want in order to make my edit possible. This is typically what we use for most of the time editing. Now, in order to actually utilize this tool, you have to understand how vocal sounds work and how to interact with it to get it to be more on time. So that's what we're going to talk about next. Understanding phonetics, which is basically knowing what sounds actually look like. So let's take a look at this line here. This is going to be, I think this is the part in the chorus. Let me find it real quick.
If you could, oh, just leave.
Actually, this might be a verse part. Let me see.
I'm breathing, join is free fall. So come with, just bring you see. How you supposed to live your life? How you supposed to live your life when nothing ever seems too late? You've just been killing time you won't get back. Gotta leave.
Okay, so here's what this line that we're looking at, I want you to know what it sounds like before we actually look at it. So here's the line.
You've just been killing time you won't get back. You've just been killing time you won't get back.
All right, so it starts with the sound and then he says the word you've, then just been, killing, and then time, you, won't, get,
back.
and then back.
So
the phonetics are these various sounds that he's making with his mouth, which, as we understand it to be English, you have to look at it, though, from a sound point of view. Now, if you notice, there are various times where the waveforms become a lot more chaotic and make more drastic changes, and then other times where it starts to create patterns or across, patterns that are across a period of time. These are all the different sounds that he's making. So it's important to start getting the hang of learning what something sounds like and then knowing what it looks like. So I'm trying to show you what that is now. Okay, so if we look at this, starting with vowels, this first vowel we have is the and that's just more of like a stylistic thing. And then the next vowel we have is oo for the word you. And that starts with the Y sound. So this is, right here we have the Y, which is the y, and then the oo of the oov. Then we go to a V, and the V is very, very short, but you can see it's right there. And then the J, and the J is like a consonant sound. And then we've got the of the just, which ends with an ST right here. And then the B, which is very short B. You can see it right there. And then the vowel of bin. And since this guy's English, so he says bean. Then we've got the N, where he closes his mouth right here. And then the K sound. And then we can see this is the vowel of killin'. And there's an L right here. So this hump is where his tongue created the L shape and the L sound. And then here's the N, where he closed his mouth again. And then here is T for time. You can see it right there. And then this is the I. And then the M.
You won't get.
Then the Y again, and then oo for you. And then here's a W for won't. Then the vowel. And so on and so on. So you could see consonants typically are easier to spot because the waveform starts to bunch up and move very rapidly. And then the vowels are a little bit more open and they have wider waveforms. So just to recap, here's what the line looks like. And I've put various letters across here so that you can better see how long each segment goes for until it changes to the next sound. Now the consonants typically don't have a note, so there's really nothing to pitch correct when you're looking at an S or a T, because typically when you're singing, you're not projecting a note with the S sound. So if you say S, you're just going S. And then if you're saying a vowel, that's typically where the actual notes fall. Now, let's do a quantization demo. Let me show you how to actually quantize stuff. So we're going to go back to the chorus part that we tuned earlier. It sounds like this.
If you could turn back time and start again.
Let's actually quantize that. Now, there's not a lot of big timing problems because the vocalist is pretty good. But we're going to tighten up what he did anyway because we need to get all of our layers to be aligned with each other, and we also want to match up with the music as well. And the music's already corrected to the grid, so if we put the vocals to the grid, everything will be lined up with each other. Starting with the first word, pretty much already in time. Now I need to know what the next word's going to be before I actually move it, so I'm going to hit play so I can remind myself what this word is.
If you could.
You're going to get to a point where you start to memorize what certain words look like or what certain sounds sound like, and that's the phonetics part of it. But you can always just hit play and remind yourself, you know, is this a W? Is this a Y? Is this an R?
If you could.
So I can see that he's going from if, which is an F, to a Y for your, if you. So I'm going to move this back just a tiny bit because I know that the Y is going to start to develop. And then once the Y has completely developed, he's going to switch to a vowel sound. And the vowel sound is actually where I want this word to line up with the grid. I want the vowel to line up with the grid. And then I know he says the word could, which starts with a C. So this C shape is actually going to fall in front of the next beat. If you were to put that C shape behind the beat, you would notice that it would sound kind of late.
If you.
And let me turn on a click so you can hear that.
If you could turn.
All right, so by putting that consonant sound behind the beat, we've noticed that it sounds a little laggy.
If you could turn.
So if we put it just in front of the beat, right where it switches from that harsh sound to the vowel sound, we notice the sound's a lot more on time.
If you could turn back time and.
And then you could also experiment with doing a little bit in front.
If you could turn back.
And the more you go, the earlier it will sound.
If you could turn back.
I think the sweet spot's somewhere around here. Then we get to the word turn, I think it is.
If you could turn.
Yeah, turn. That's kind of the same thing as could. So you can see there's a consonant sound and then a vowel sound. Same thing here, consonant sound, vowel sound. So basically the same setup.
If you could turn back time and.
So this is a B. We need to put that in front. This is a T. It looks like he says time manned. So this is an M and then the word and.
Time and start.
Yeah. And then start is an S and then a gap and then a T. So start. That's going to go on time like that. The T, the S is going to come before and then the T is going to go directly on the beat.
Time and start again.
Now the G sounds a little early and you can see how here's the line and then here's the G. So let's see what happens if we put it right there.
Time and start again.
Much better. We're going to leave the rest of it alone. I'm not going to change the ending of the last word or anything like that. We'll save that for after we've gone through the rest of the layers because we might need to know what the other takes are doing before we actually move this. So let's just go to the next one. And it's basically the same process all over again. So this looks a little different than the last one. We're going to listen to see why. seems to be all right. Just needs to be moved a little bit to the later in time. Okay, so now that I'm done with that line, I'm going to actually look at the two of these together and see if they end the same. And it looks like they do. And then I'll also check with my ears just by listening.
If you could turn back time and start again.
Sounds pretty damn close. Let's see. I think this word right here caught my ear. I'm going to go in and just move it a little bit later in time, see if that sounds better.
If you could turn back time and start again.
And one of the techniques I'm using to actually find specific words is the follow key, and I'll show you how to do that. So if I actually take my cursor and I'm playing a vocal part,
If you could.
and I realize, okay, I want to look at the word could, I saw that my cursor just passed over this shape here during the word could. So I'll move my cursor to the beginning of that word, and then when I hit enter to go to the sample editor, I can press F 2 times and it'll take me instantly to that word. So if I'm not close to that word and I hit F twice, it takes me there. So let's say I'm like far away from the word, I hit F, there it is. The reason why you hit F twice is because you're turning the follow mode on, which will continue to follow it.
Could turn back time
And then you're hitting it again to turn it off so that the next time you hit play, the screen won't follow the cursor.
Could turn back time
I just prefer to do it that way. I think it's faster. I don't want to be scrolling all over the place. I usually use my mouse to move my view to exactly what I want to look at, rather than having the computer do it for me. But you can do whatever you need to do. I also try to get the endings of words to match, especially if you're dealing with a take that has, various breaths and gaps and things like that. You will get differences in word length, and you want to get those to match, because if this one falls here, but this one falls earlier, you're going to hear like a flam, I guess. So I'm going to take this one and move it back just a tad, and then move this one forward just a tad. Let's see what we got now.
If you could turn back time and start again.
Cool. Now, we can actually listen to the old one if we go over here to where it was copy and pasted, and we can make a comparison.
If you could turn back time and start again. If you could turn back time and start again.
So the edited one sounds much tighter. And we've got the double matching the original much closer. Let's keep going. So let's go to the third double, get that one put on time. Okay, and then I'm going to check the endings. And I'm going to listen to the endings. Sounds good. Let's hear the whole thing.
If you could turn back time and start again.
Awesome. Let's do the harmony. And you can use these zoom tools to kind of help you see what's going on. Can be difficult on certain types of vocal takes. I like to zoom in quite a bit so I can see everything pretty much exaggerated, which is really helpful when you're trying to do these type of edits. Okay, that looks like it's in a weird spot. Let's see. It goes right there. I think this harmony ended up being a little short. Let's take a look. Yeah, definitely. So what I'm gonna actually do is I'm gonna raise the height of my track so I can easily see what's going on here. And I'm gonna take this, it looks like this is the word again.
Yeah.
Yeah, so when he gets to the end of the word again, his mouth closes on that in sound, so that's, or his tongue, you know, touches the top of his mouth when he says in. So that's when the sound, the waveform starts to change the shape. So I'm gonna go in and actually put my cursor right where he did that in the lead line, and I'm gonna make all the other takes copy that same placement. So I'm gonna put it right there. And I'm also removing these, every time you make an edit close to the end, it creates an automatic warp point at the end of your event. I always shift click those to delete them because I don't want to change the timing of this area, which is usually where the vocalist is breathing or making some sort of noise that I don't want to be affected. So I try to always delete the warp points at the end and beginning of every take. All right, let's see what that sounds like.
If you could turn back time and start again.
Awesome. And then one more harmony.
If you could turn back time and start again.
So I need to make it a little bit longer. I've put my cursor, I'm taking my cursor and I'm putting it where it is, where this falls on the other takes, so that when I open this take in the sample editor, I can see where I need to move it to. Like as a visual guide.
If you could turn back time and start again.
And then let's listen to what it used to sound like.
If you could turn back time and start again. If you could turn back time and start again.
The only thing that bothers me now, I think, is just this the starting point for the harmony isn't quite the same as the other one. So I'm gonna check out and see what he did.
If.
So the lead vocalist, he kind of, when he says the word if, he just starts immediately. It has a burst of sound on that first vowel.
If.
But the drummer who sings the higher harmony has a little bit of a hard time getting to that note immediately. So what we're gonna do is we're actually gonna just cut right here, and then I'm gonna take this and scoot it over like that, and I'm gonna crossfade them together. And this should make his vowel happen much quicker, which is a lot closer to what the lead vocalist did. We're trying to make all these match the lead vocalist as close as possible. And if you're wondering what tool I'm using to do this, it's number 9. If you're on the top of your keyboard here, you just hit number 9, and then you can use this little speaker tool to preview sections of vocal lines or various audio takes and things. It's also a great way to learn the phonetics of vocals, because then you can go in here and look at shapes and hear what they sound like just by clicking on them. Cool. Let's hear this.
If you could turn back time and start again.
Great. Sounds good.